Welcome to the Charley King Show, Bluebell Talks, and I am so excited to be supported by Hummingbird Nest Ranch.
The Charley King Show, Bluebell Talks. Come on in, let the whole room talk. The Charley King Show, Bluebell Talks. We learn your life, then we sing it back. The Charley King Show, Charley King Show, Bluebell Talks. Big heart, big dreams, and a little bit of sparkle.
I have a very special guest on today, my lovely friend, the wonderful Karen Schmidt. Now, Karen is the reason that my Bluebell Talks even exists. If it wasn't for Karen, I wouldn't have done my Instagram Live back in the pandemic, and I really wanted Karen to be one of my first guests. What you'll learn about me is that I always remember like where I came from and the people that have helped me along the way. So it was very important that Karen was part of one of my first episodes. So we are going to get into all the hard money questions and life after I do, and how to really navigate all the hard questions that you should be asking one another when you get engaged or when you're talking about your wedding. Questions that are usually in England swept under the carpet. Okay, so a little bit of background about how my lovely guest Karen and I met. We were both doing F45. And I remember you and Troy used to come in every day to the class and we'd smile and go, hello. And that's really like the interaction that we had,
They don't give you much time.
right? I know you're like, get in and get on with the show. And then one day you called me up and you said, I've noticed that you've been like working out and I really want to talk to you about that. Would you have coffee with me? And I was like, oh, yes, I'd love to have coffee with you. So I remember we sat down and we had a lovely conversation and I talked all about F45 and working out and then the meals that they had. And I think you had your son's wedding coming up at that
I
time.
do.
And you were like, I really want to like, be really fit for the dress. And so I was like, but I will help you. Let's do this. And I remember you worked really hard and you said, if you ever need anything, I'm a financial planner. I'm here for you. And I was like, oh, well, I just want to help you, but that's amazing. I, would love some financial planning. So cut to the pandemic, and it's March the 14th or 15th when they shut everything down. And I was at the Four Seasons Hotel about to do a wedding the very next day. They'd all flown in from China. And I remember the hotel saying, we cannot do the wedding. You have to cancel it. And I remember thinking, oh my God. And then force majeure kept coming into my head going, oh my God, this is in my contract. And we were going to have a conversation that afternoon about financial planning. And you called me up and you went, honey, this is going to be a disaster for you. You're like, this is going to be 2 years of your life. You need to buckle down. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks. What are you talking about, Willis? It's not going to be 2 years. And you went, no, this is going to be 2 years. What are you going to do? How are you going to keep your industry together? Because if you don't stay together, you will never come back from this. And you made this light bulb go off in me. And I was like, oh, I never really thought about that.
I remember it.
So I was like, God, that was the most smartest piece of advice I'd ever been given. And I was like, well, okay, I called Courtney, who does all my lovely social media. And I'm like, what can I do? And she's like, well, there's Instagram Live. And I was like, oh, and that way I could interview people. I could talk to them. I could get to know who they are because like when you're networking, someone comes up, you're like, hello. Then that person comes up and like you never really know who your vendors are. And I thought, this would be a really good opportunity to get to know them. So I thought, right, we need to know what force majeure means. We need to figure out our contracts because all these weddings were like being canceled left, right, and center. And all my friends who were wedding planners were going, what do we do? How do we handle this? So I remember calling up Rob Schenk, who was then an amazing wedding planning lawyer. He doesn't do it anymore. And I said, I think I'm going to do a show called Bluebell Talks. And I think I want to talk about contracts and you know, how do we navigate this? So I said, will you come on the show? And he's like, absolutely. So the next day, and I'll cut this long story short and get to you, but you are the reason for this. The next day he came on the show, and it was great because Instagram Live, people leave you questions. And so I was able to go, oh, so-and-so says, well, do we need to change our contracts? And what do we need to do? And he was like, I'll send you things so you can put them in your contracts. And it was like the best thing ever. And so I really thank you for that. And so yeah, so it's very important that you're here today. And money is one of the roots of all the high reason why marriages
I'll
don't
argue
last.
the root.
The root.
Pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. So my guest today has an incredible background. She's a very, very impressive lady, and I love supporting strong, impressive women. And she has a very exciting new adventure that we're going to talk about that's sitting on the desk here that I'm so proud. And the story of how this came about, I just really want you to tell. Before we talk about that, Karen grew up in a household raised by a Navy officer and a Division I football player, a household where excellence was expected, and she inherited structure and stamina from her father and vision from her mother, who was an artist. And she was on course to compete in the 1980 U.S. women's swim team, and a dream, she says, that was interrupted not by performance, but by history, because the Moscow Games was boycotted that year, and sadly, that ended that chapter for you. She is an incredible, stellar academic. She had an interior design business with 30 employees and $10 million in annual revenue before the housing downturn, which led her to joining Northwestern Mutual, becoming one of the top 10 advisors in the US within 10 years. And we talk about an overachiever. Then during a routine mammogram, cancer entered the conversation. And we'll talk about this, but what unsettled her most was not the fear of dying, but the sense that she had not yet built something that felt like a legacy for her children. So on her birthday, June 13th, she was in Greece, and I'm going to have her tell that story. But I'm so thrilled that you're here today, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is really fun for me. This feels, I can't believe it's been 4 years. It went by so fast.
I know,
It's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
Time has flown so fast, and you've done so much in that time. And I know we have, and I can't wait to talk about 613 and the bottle and all of that stuff. But I know it's going to be perfect for summer weddings. It's going to be perfect for the specialty cocktails.
So
But what was life growing up for you in such a disciplined and structured kind of family?
I think, I'm going to be 64 because obviously everything kind of comes to about. And then I was raised, I'm a baby boomer, quintessentially a baby boomer. And, raised very differently, I think, than we see sometimes with some of the younger generations today. And there was just a kind of a no excuse attitude that you couldn't cry. There's no crying in baseball, so to speak. It was you either did it or you were punished or you were told you weren't good enough. And I just think it may not be necessarily the best parenting skills looking back on it, but it is a foundation of what drove me to be always better. I mean, my dad was the type of person that if I got an A-, it should have been an A. If I got if I got a B, it definitely should have been an A. There was just no excuse for not setting and making it work or not being first. It was really in his entire DNA of who he was. So you lived in fear of making your dad proud. I know a lot about some of the things that I know how you feel about your father, and honestly, he was. It was hard to feel those things about somebody that was pretty militant, and he was Navy, and he was very disciplined in exercise and eating, and everything was very rigid and very on time. So when you're raised like that, you always are trying to please. You're always trying to do better. You're always trying to find a way to be the best. And I think that is a wonderful way to do it, but it also can be a little bit of a crux when you're growing up sometimes.
Perfection, right? Because perfection is very hard to live up to.
Yeah. And you can't. That's the best part about getting older.
Yeah.
And your parents getting older is you realize they were just
doing what
they were
do.
just doing what they do. And you just there's a little bit more forgiveness that gets older, and you think, okay, when he was saying that to me, he was way younger than I am right now, and I thought he was way older. So it's just like you think they're the all-knowing, and I'm sure he was proud, but I think it was just his way of saying you have to always go better. He never could say it.
But it does give you structure, and it does give you that go-getter thing that you have. Because everything you've done to a to a level that's like, to be ready for the Olympics. That's
Yeah.
you weren't just
No,
swimming.
that was
You were
5:30 in
like,
the morning till 7 o'clock, and then you're back in the pool at 3:30 till 5:30 every single day
yeah.
of your life. You say no to parties, you say no to everything. Yeah, it was.
It's a different discipline. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's different. It's like your mentality is like my dancer's mentality. Like we have a really good work ethic,
Yeah.
really strong work ethic.
Very disciplined in the way that you had to, what made you is an amazing time organizer,
Yes.
because you
Yeah.
just every minute was
Yeah.
connected, and you had to get it you had to just get
Yeah.
it done. You just knew it.
What was it like training for the Olympics and then not having the chance to go?
Well, it was really only going in for the alternate level, so it really wasn't it wasn't done the same way it is now. I mean, now it's a complete enterprise and a business, and back then it was like more of a hobby. I mean, it didn't you I was fast. I was really, really fast, and I was a sprinter, and I had a girlfriend who was amazingly, and she was in for long distance, and we had some of the best times in the state. And I consistently won, and I was always pushing and pushing, but it's such a different sport now than it was back then. So it really, in a way, wasn't really taken seriously that way. Not like,
Now it's huge.
now it's just a huge
Yeah.
thing. It's amazing, and I love it, and I watch it, and it gets the recognition that it needs. But it was really just, you have to remember, I was born of a time when it wasn't until I was 28 that I could open up my own bank account. Okay, I mean, without somebody signing for me. I mean, it was
Crazy.
just crazy. So swimming was just something for a woman to be able to do, to get out of the house. And it was interesting. It's a very different way of thinking. It's very hard for you and my own children to put myself in that position, because that's striving for excellence or being the best at something when it was just coming out that you could be something other than what your mom was, which my
Yeah.
parents were.
Yeah.
Mad Men. If you watch Mad Men, it's like literally watching my parents. So
Oh,
it's like
wow.
the whole cost, everything. But that was my life, was watching, was my parents. So very different. My mom never realized her dreams because she was never told she could. But I was given opportunities to be outside of that, and I think it was the beginning of the path that we hopefully made for a lot of the women that came behind us.
Yeah. And then you pass that on to your children as
Yes,
well. Like
I hope I
you
did.
gave them the
I
chance
think they could
to
argue every now and then.
yeah, well, that's
I
mother.
remember, I mean, it's still, yeah. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, that's always a
Yeah,
dynamic.
it's always a dynamic.
Yes, which actually does tie in very nicely to our conversation today about money and
Oh,
weddings and
God,
things, because,
so
it's one of the hardest things to talk about in relationships.
it
And
is.
I know in relationships, I've been like, oh, I don't talk about money, and it is one of the reasons for divorce. And so I really wanted to talk and about love versus money and get your perspective on it because like
I do know. I see a lot.
see it all the time
Yeah.
with your clients. But why is money one of the biggest stresses in marriage, and how can couples get ahead of that before it becomes an issue?
And it's a beautiful question, because it's going to go in way past a wedding. Because I also stem from a fact that I think women get into, and maybe it's because of my baby boomer and what I was raised with, but I think women get under bad bosses and in bad marriages because they don't financially know how they can leave.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
they pick something with a certain dream, or think that something's going to write a certain ticket, and then the complacencies, or really truthfully, the ignorance. Or how many times have we heard women aren't good at math, men are better at math, or something like that, and they equate money with math, and it
Yeah.
really isn't money and math. To me, it's, you're dealing with freedom. Okay, money is
Money is
basically
freedom.
freedom.
Yep.
Okay, and it means everything to everybody. Just it means the same thing to men as it does to women. So when I start to talk to young couples about the love and the money, if you don't pull back the covers, and I say it, if I can say it on a podcast, but if you don't get naked with somebody and really understand exactly how
Yeah.
things look in the worst light and in the worst mirror,
Yeah.
then you really have another thing to strive for in your relationship. Because if you haven't had that conversation, it's very easy to be in love, and it's very easy to feel things and whatever. It's okay if someone's a little bit more artistic and somebody's A and somebody's B or whatever. But it really comes down to how you embrace money, because it's always it's a fear component.
Yes.
It has a lot of things wrapped up, and it will bring out the very worst in you
Mhm.
when you feel threatened, and it'll bring out the very best when you feel things are good. And so how do we balance that with a couple? So I'm constantly working on that when I start to work with young couples, and we go into something that's pretty scary for people. It's really, how do you spend? What does it make you feel when you spend? How does it make
Yeah.
you feel when you save?
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people today don't get the. I love it when I see my account growing,
Oh, me too.
but then I have
get
the problem with
rushed from
spending.
it.
I'm
Mm.
so busy saving and so busy, squirreling away that I forget to have the freedom that money brings me.
Yeah.
Well, then somebody else who's a spender doesn't is into this high of spending, but
Yeah.
there's usually something very complicated or connected to personality or upbringing, which I have to dive into when I start doing these things. And
Yeah.
it's important. And I think nothing can bring that out faster in a relationship than talking about money. So it
Yeah.
becomes that
And I think having someone like you with a couple talking about
Mhm.
it is way much
safe
easier.
place. It's a safe
It's a
place.
safe place, and
Yeah.
you're going to ask the right questions. And it's great. Maybe a couple can sit down at the end of the day with a glass of wine and talk about money. But I feel like it needs to have someone like you there to navigate
It
it.
does need to navigate. I think not having someone be that therapist in that
Yeah.
is you're so quick to go to therapists and go to Instagram or eBay or listen to whatever it is that these kids are doing. They get all this crazy amount of information, but they don't get real technicians
Yeah.
to manage the conversation.
Yeah.
And it brings it. And I'm telling you, I the truth is, there's a saying in our industry: if we get them to cry, it means that they're probably going to be a client, because I've gotten so deep and I've gotten into the
Yeah.
heart of it
Yeah.
that it brings the fear out, and that fear allows people to really tell me more truth.
And fear, I think, is a really big thing, is because a lot of people are fearful of money. And so if you're entering a relationship and you have a fear of it, lack of it, it's going to go. And then the other person is like, well, I like to spend and I like to la 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 la. How do you navigate two different ways of living your life?
Well, and if you go further with the conversation, I do unfortunately paint that scary picture of, let's fast forward, and I've done this many times with couples where I've just sat around their kitchen table, saw them, held their babies when they came in, and then 10 years later they're getting divorced. I've actually been in those
Ugh.
situations, and I've seen the whole thing. And I'm always telling people as we go through, you know, those type of money talks, is that money is supposed to be equitable, not equal. And that's a very big difference when you start to talk about money, especially with couples.
Yeah.
Because invariably, very few of them are making the exact same amount of money.
Right.
There's always a disparaging situation. And then, of course, cultures have women seem like they take on a larger load someplace, which they're not paid for, or assumptions based on staying home or chastising for not being home with a baby. And then it stops their career. And there's all these things that go along with that. And so I work really hard on the equitable conversation, because if a couple is making, if he's making 150,000 and she's making 50,000, they're technically by the law making 200,000, which means he's making 100 and she's making 100,000. That's a
So you
very
have to
different
split it.
conversation when you have to start saving for retirement.
Yeah.
And so as long as they understand the equitable conversation, and not that he's making more money and she's making less money,
Mm.
or that she contributes more at home and he does not, it becomes, we have to talk about equitable. And it's a very different way of being able to present money. And when I do that, it helps them rise to a surface where they can actually be equal to each other.
And that makes sense. And it's never been explained to me in that way before, but it does make sense. If one makes more and one doesn't the other, it is unequal. And how do you make
Well,
it
if you got
equal?
divorced, it's the first thing that the judge
Yeah.
looks at.
Yeah.
They're looking at what's coming in on the household, and whatever has to come out in the difference is what we know as alimony or child support.
Yeah.
That is the equatable difference of what comes in and out. And it's just a big, people don't realize when they get, and I let them know, they are now a profit and loss center.
Yeah.
They are now an institution. Okay, by
Oh.
however you feel it, but they're now an institution. An institution has a P&L, just like any business does.
Yeah.
So we discuss the in and the out, and we discuss the debits and the credits, and we discuss, and then we understand what that means. And it's not an easy conversation. It does sometimes. It could take me a couple meetings before we really get to the heart of how
Yeah.
to click on that.
And how to get it out of them. Because I know
Yes.
there's if you have a huge amount of debt and you're going into that conversation, you're like, I'm sure
You instantly marry debt, but you don't instantly marry assets, and people don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't instantly marry assets, but you marry debt,
Yeah.
and and people don't realize that.
So then my question is going to be, how soon is the soonest you should talk about finances?
I think when you start moving in with somebody, just
That should be a
as
conversation.
my kick the tire type of thing. You start going in there, you start kicking the tire is when we have to have this conversation. Only because it creates realistic expectations.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be done way before a ring gets on a finger.
Yeah.
Because it would. I've been in love with three very different men in my life, and they all start out great. So I'm a real believer in understanding what it means to be able to do that. So, but my third one, is been, I call him my Goldilocks. He's my just right.
Yes.
But it's
Love
always,
you, Sean.
I know he's amazing, but
best.
it's I'm 64. It's not like it happened overnight. So, and the lessons I'm saying right now are definitely from those years of
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
I think if I was to get married again, I definitely would. And we never had any problems with our finances. It was, we had shared bank account back
Yeah.
in those days, But I think if I was going into it again, I would definitely have the conversation.
Yes.
And even though you're in love and, oh, I just, la, 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 you'd have to have those
You have to.
conversations. And because a lot of my brides talk to me about things like that.
Mhm.
And they also talk to me about prenups, and, what are your
I'm a
thoughts?
believer in prenups.
Yeah, me too.
I really am.
Me
And
too.
I think what people understand is that you can't even get an apartment without having a rental agreement. So if you're going into an apartment, you both need to be on the rental agreement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's something I always say that you have to manage the agreements between people. You cannot manage people. So
Yes.
you can always manage an agreement, and you now know the outline and the box you need to dance in. And if somebody wants to dance outside the box, then we have to create another agreement, or we have to amend the agreement, which we call amendments. Prenup is just an agreement.
Yeah.
And it can get obviously very complicated with more money, but I think the prenup is a starting agreement. It has a different starting line.
Yeah.
And if you have to go horribly down another road 15 years or 5 years later, at least you start at the agreement height.
Yeah.
You don't start in the murky waters. You can almost start at a sea level, and then you can usually work from there if you've had good counsel or good advice.
Yeah.
Prenups should not be scary. It's actually a beautiful document if it's done really well. And most people haven't even read one, but it does bring out the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. Well, it's going to protect you as
Yes.
well. As a woman, you need to protect yourself, especially nowadays. I feel like it's even more important than it was years ago. To protect yourself.
Yeah.
So
But we are in a very litigious society.
We
So
are.
you go
Yeah.
down if he goes down. She
Yep.
goes down if you go down. Kids, you're entrusting the next gen. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, and it's very focal now. Where you used to be able to put a lot of those things under, like we talked about.
Yeah,
Like you don't
under the
say it,
carpet. I'm
but
talking about.
it's all out there right now, and they've
Yeah.
got everybody giving them advice, and they see everybody's woes, and and it's never black and white. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks it is. That the entire prenup is in the gray.
Yeah.
That's I mean, you have to understand the gray.
How do you think things have changed in the last 10 years in terms of people talking about finances and with Gen Z? Because Gen Z is a whole different ball game when it comes to planning weddings. So I'm thinking finance wise.
And you're talking more about like the expectations of being
Yeah, I feel like they're
flashy or being something that somebody else to
No,
see.
I think they're
or
less
no.
splashy. Like,
Oh.
how do they manage their finances? Like, they just seem to be more switched on, I think, about finances. And I don't know whether that's education from TikTok because it's on all the time, but have you
Well,
seen a change?
I do see a shift of wanting to get rich quick. I do see a lot
Yeah.
of I see a lot of like I'm going to just do this and thinks it's just going to materialize. And I
Yeah.
think that's where some of the work ethic comes really well for us, is because I mean, I'm a real believer in 10,000 hours. I love that book, but I mean, you can't make money
Yeah.
until you've been 10,000 immersed in something. So
Yeah,
even some
yeah,
of your
yeah.
best influencers that they all want to be or whatever have done 10,000 hours probably worth of work. It doesn't just hit on
Overnight,
these
yeah.
situations. It takes a lot of time and effort to do anything, and discipline. I think I call it the Russell Simmons type of thing.
Yeah.
Russell Simmons, I think a lot of people that do exercise would say some of his exercises weren't really good for really large people. But you know what he did? He got everybody off the couch.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
So there's a Russell Simmons attitude of just get them off the couch. So the fact that people are getting very interested in finances and they're able to understand money, that's a good thing. Like some
Yeah.
people will quote a Dave Ramsey book, or they'll quote this kind of a book, or they'll do something. And I said, I'm glad you're off the couch.
Yeah.
Now it's not ideal for every person. Just like, a Russell Simmons exercise is not what we would do at 45,
Yeah,
right?
it's not for
gonna happen.
everybody. Yeah.
So it's really important to get around people that really know what they're doing so they can actually pull apart and make sure that it is a fit. Because I think everything's about a fit.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that there's not one advisor better than the other. I think it has to really be a fit, because
Yeah.
if you can't,
And trust.
you don't, trust is earned. So I'm okay with trust not being
Yeah.
earned at the beginning. But you got to be able to pick up the phone and say, okay, I like talking to this person. And it's hard and they have to
Yeah,
jive
yeah,
with you. If
yeah.
it doesn't jive, then we can go on and we can find somebody that does, because it's always about a fit.
Yeah.
But financial planning, I love that this generation has so much knowledge. Look what we can do. And I don't think that they use it enough, or they use it in a place that allows them to acquiesce to whatever whim they have. But I think understanding the fundamentals of real planning is
Yeah.
never going to change.
Mm.
It's not going to change.
But do you
Uh,
think it should be taught in school?
Oh, I would love to teach it in school. I bet, I've had some really great teachers bring me in, and we teach sixth graders how to do a checkbook. Do you know people
See?
don't know how to balance a
No,
checkbook?
I.
It's crazy.
My dad tried, but I wish that I wish I'd learned in school. I wish they'd said, this is how you balance a checkbook. Here's how you invest money. Here's how you save
Yeah.
money. And I was told, oh, save money, but for some reason it didn't.
Or at least the concept of understanding it, so that you're
Yeah.
not, sold, you're not sold a bag of goods because you think something else is supposed to be. Understand that
Yeah.
the fundamentals of money will never haven't changed.
I think it would be fantastic if you went into schools and taught kids how to do it.
I think there's some really great programs, but
Teenagers.
we all know how the schools are dealing with
Yeah.
things right now. It's a little bit
'Cause
difficult, but
they
I,
don't.
yeah,
They don't do it, do
yeah,
they?
I do get a lot more responses when I'm dealing with more in private institutions, and
Mm.
because they're very good about teaching some basics with kids. I would love to do that more. I think
Mm.
that would be
I was just thinking,
fantastic, just to watch a kid understand money in, money out. It's
oh,
it's so important. I always make this joke. I go, you make $1 million, I'm really happy for you. You spend $1,001,000, you're kind of screwed. So it's like that is a
yeah,
basic of everything. And I'm
yeah,
telling you, I have a lot of very big celebrity people who make a lot of money that you and I can't even spend in a day.
yeah. Well, I
And
could
they're
try.
still yeah, but they're still negative. I mean, it's amazing.
It is
You can
amazing. Yeah,
it's all really relative. So it depends on how
yeah.
much money is going in and out. It's not necessarily how much money you're making.
You are listening to The Charley King Show. My guest today is the wonderful financial planner Karen Schmidt, and also creator of the new liqueur 613. We'll be right back with this conversation after a few words about my amazing sponsor, Hummingbird Nest Ranch. Hummingbird Nest Ranch has a legendary past and an even more exciting future. Nestled in the stunning Santa Susana Mountains of California, this iconic property is back under passionate new ownership, being restored as the luxury destination wedding venue it was always meant to be. Their team brings over 30 years of hospitality experience, deep marketing expertise, and the financial commitment to make Hummingbird Nest Ranch everything it's ever dreamed of being. And while their long-term vision stretches towards a world-class spa and resort, today their singular focus is on you and making sure every event at Hummingbird Nest Ranch is nothing short of extraordinary. Because there, 110% isn't a goal, it's the only standard they accept. And now let's jump back into the conversation with Karen Schmidt. Talking about the wedding itself.
Yes.
Okay, from a financial perspective, how should couples decide, like on their wedding day, like what is worth splurging on versus, what should they save on?
That is a hard thing for me, because I am a mom who's spent a tremendous amount of money on a wedding, and I
Yeah.
also celebrated somebody that eloped on and went to the courthouse. And it's such a personal thing. I do feel as a mother sometimes, and family,
Hmm.
we only get together with wedding and funerals. It's like, to me, it's like weddings are it. It's like the
Yeah,
one place
it's true.
where you're everybody is there and reflecting and being part of a very special day that hopefully will bring in, other generations. So I love lovely weddings. I really do. But again, it's going to come down to the get naked
Yep, the
conversation,
B
meaning,
word.
talk about the budget, because and it doesn't have to be constrictive, but it needs to manage that agreement. If the
Yeah.
agreement is this amount of money, and then if we say, okay, if we're not going to spend, I had my bride one time, like when I was working with her, and she goes, look, if you both have agreed that you cannot spend more than $1,000 on something unless you both agree to it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a $5,000 ticket or a $10,000 ticket. Everybody has their different budgets.
Yeah.
And it's all relative. But
Luxury is relative to
right, it's
whatever
all
your
relative.
budget
I mean,
is.
it's amazing. So it's amazing how I see that go. I mean, you go into a wedding gown, and
Yeah.
you say 3,000 is my budget, and the one that the person that shows you a $5,000 dress, happened to me with one of my daughters. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, but that one happens. That means this probably goes away. I can be strong enough to say that, but
Yeah.
it starts to creep up, and you shouldn't have to go in there and say, well, every budget ends up getting 20%. It's like a housing budget, like you get like a
Yeah.
remodeling.
Yeah.
Well, just figure, literally write in books, just figure it's going to cost you 20% more. well, why should it cost you 20%
Yeah, well,
more?
and that's my job
Okay,
is to help
right,
you with the
that is your
budget and
job.
say, well, if you want these
Yeah.
charges and those chairs,
Yeah.
this is going to put your budget over. Are you willing to do that?
And I think that the generation we're talking about, if there was anything I would say, and I don't want to put it in a negative light, but there's not a lot of compromise sometimes. It's a want. Well,
Mhm.
you got to give a little bit if you want these other things. And
Yeah.
I think that's just a hard thing for anybody to control when they're so used to having all this
What they want.
information and what
Yeah.
they want. It
Yeah.
just gets harder. Yeah.
Although I do think Gen Z, the generation, are not going for they're not like want. It's very different. It's very much more, let's make it about them. Let's make it, it's very different way of wedding planning, which has been so fascinating to try and understand
navigate.
that
Oh, yeah.
and
Thank
yeah,
you.
navigate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But then you also have the situation of like when parents are contributing financially, because nowadays a lot of the kids are making really good money right now. But if a parent contributes financially, does this complicate things, which we know it does? And how's a graceful way that couples can navigate this?
And I have always, I was very conscious of this going through it with one of my daughters, and it was, I knew there was a budget, and I knew I really wanted her to have whatever she wanted to have.
Mm.
But I did find, like I think any parent does, if I'm putting this amount of money for it, then I want Uncle Joe that you don't like to be at the wedding. Well, then you get a pushback saying it's my day. I should be able to do it. Well, it's my money and I need to do it. And it's my family and I want everybody there. And I haven't had them in a family picture. And I've heard all these conversations.
Yeah, I've had them all.
Yeah. And I think, again, the dynamics, this is where you see, I'm sure you've seen it, but the dynamics between parents, you start to see it actually rise pretty fast in how a bride and a groom has dealt with their parents with money, where it is. I've seen other parents say, look, I don't think you should spend anything. I think you should go spend it on a house and I'll pay you not to have a wedding just so I don't have to deal with the wedding. I've seen people like, I'll give you an extra $1 for your house if you don't have the wedding. But otherwise, if you have the wedding, I'm going to give you this. I mean, I've seen that.
Yep.
And I've seen all the way to, they're just paying for everything and they just said, don't worry about it. And it really just stems down, but you're dealing with, ultimately, you've got 6 personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Father, mother,
Mother,
bride, groom. And
Yep.
you've got 6 personalities. And you put 6 personalities in any room. I don't care if it's a boardroom. I
Yeah.
don't care. I mean, I've done what they call buy-sell agreements, and I work with a lot of lawyers that are working with a lot of different equity partners. I don't care. You put 6 people in anything, it's chaos. Okay, the managing chaos without really good direction is always going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So I think it's a hard question to answer.
It is.
I'm a real believer in weddings should create the memories because you do look at the pictures.
Yeah, it's
Even
the
though I have
memories.
ones that were disasters, like I have my second marriage, but all the people that were there were so
Well,
amazing.
yeah, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like you look back and, like I don't regret anything from my wedding day. Everything, it was just perfection, even though, it didn't get happy ever after. But it's the memories that you remember.
No, it's in the people and I remember looking at my one of my first wedding videos, and many people have passed obviously
Yeah.
since, but and just watching the way that they moved. Like I actually saw my a sister that passed away. I had a sister that passed away, and watching her move, I'm like, wow, I do that. And she was my older sister. So I was thinking, maybe did we get that from my dad? Because we had our dad in common, right? My dad married 6 times, so we won't get there.
Oh, wow.
But
That's a
basically,
whole nother
yeah,
show.
we won't go there. That's a whole other show. But I watched her move something
Wow.
to her mouth, and I said, God, I think I
You
look
do
like that.
that.
And I go, did we get that from our dad? Like, that was kind of fun for me on a memory level
Yeah.
to be able to connect with that.
And see,
But
that's why video is so important.
video is
And I'm
very
going off on another tangent now, but sometimes video is the hardest thing for me to sell to brides. Are like,
Oh,
and I
no,
know
no, no, no.
they love the content creation, which is great. Courtney's awesome, but that's wonderful to have. But I do think that video is super important as well because of that reason. And people that have
They
passed.
find the things that you can't always get. You have a still
Yes.
moment.
You didn't see Grandpa crying,
Yeah.
but the cameraman caught it.
Yeah. I agree. I do agree.
So
So it's hard to be able to create that. I like to put anything money in memories. Anything that has a
Mhm.
memory that allows you to say that you were here, that there was something
Yeah.
else that you could go is, I think, such an important place to put
Yeah.
money,
And
because
you
it
hear
is
the
short lived.
speech. Yeah, it is. You hear the words of your dad,
Yeah.
who's not there anymore.
Yeah.
You can't get that back.
Yeah. No, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so that's a hard one for me, but it really comes to, again, manage the agreements.
Manage
Don't
the
manage the
agreements.
people. Manage the
It's
agreements.
really good.
It's really important. It really comes down to
Yeah.
that all the time because then it just becomes this thing on a piece of paper and say, this is what we
Mm.
said. And okay, it's more. And we agreed We agreed you weren't going to spend that dollar unless we both talked about it or
Yeah.
whatever. And now you have an agreement. Makes
Yeah.
it different.
I love that. Have an agreement. So after the beautiful wedding, life after I do, because that's another whole, this doesn't just
Right.
end at the end of the aisle, right? This goes on. So what are like 3 financial conversations every newly married couple should have?
Um, I think it's comes down to the biggest one, which is what I call expectations of income and control.
Okay.
Let's just face it, money talks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it also bends and hurts and cajoles and threatens. And
Ooh, good
it
adjectives.
is everything. Money is everything. Nobody likes to talk about it, but it literally usually comes down to a dime. It's
Yeah.
of some sort. And so we talk about the idea of the expectations around how income's going to come in and who is going to control the income. And it doesn't mean it has to be controlled with contrition or like, someone's putting their thumb on you. That's not what I mean by
Mm.
control. But it does mean that generally there's always somebody that more in the family that's a CFO and somebody who's not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to come that way. And
Mhm.
then both sides get complacent. And a lot of the tension I feel later on is, well, I've done all this and I'm managing this and you're doing this and then you're spending, and then it comes down to the situation. So we have to constantly manage
Yeah.
that, what I call that kind of that chaos.
And it changes too
Oh, it does
during
change.
over
Of course,
time.
everything changes. Yeah.
Because like Ross used to like do all our, the finances. Now, if I was going to a relationship now, being older, you bet your bottom dollar, I'm going to be right there too.
Right.
So it's like, how do you navigate that?
Right. The next one is I think the biggest one is we talk about joint accounts versus the separate accounts.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's one of the key things I talk about. I like the his, mine, and ours
I like that.
mentality.
Mhm.
Again, managing the agreement, because we all need the money. That if we want to buy something and we want a double fudge ice sundae and we don't want anybody to know about it, we shouldn't have to put it on our joint card and say, you went to Baskin Robbins and spent $12. Like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, nobody
And I'm
wants
like,
that.
I don't know, having a moment and I needed chocolate. Okay. And that's what I had to do it. So I like the his, mine, and ours so that we have, depending on how they feel, you can either have your paychecks go into a separate account, and then you
Yeah.
both agree to a certain level of percentages that goes into the joint, or you have all the paychecks go in the joint, and then you pay yourselves out your discretionary. So either so one's a paycheck and the other one's are play checks.
Yeah.
So you have to decide which
Pay and
way
play.
that works best for the family. But
Okay.
I think your freedom and your security comes from
Yeah.
knowing you have access to something that
Yeah.
can be just yours. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that can be managed by the way money goes in those accounts. And I
Yeah.
think spending habits become another big thing I talk about. And I always say choose your expensive, right? It's like choose your expensive, because if you're going to complain over a Starbucks, and I tell you, I can make somebody a millionaire if they just give me 3 Starbucks. If they start in 25 years old and they gave me 3 Starbucks every week, and I invested that every week, I can make them a millionaire. And they just gave up 3 Starbucks to me a week.
Wow.
I could help them by the time that they
I'm
were
giving
45.
you that.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying it's amazing how much money is spent.
Yes. And
Okay.
that you don't realize.
Right. So yeah, I
Trickle
call
money.
I always say, do you like your Starbucks, or are you in love with the Amazon man?
Yeah.
Because Amazon's so easy. You just click and spend, and you don't actually feel it coming out of the situation. So managing some of those accounts become really important for me when we talk about the spending habits. And it's not that I'm saying you're spending too much or you're not spending, but there is a correlation in how people work as partners that way. Who's buying this one? Well, it's a lot easier to click, click, click. And then 3 things were for the house that you had to do, and 1 thing was for you, but it was hidden, and that's what I see a lot. So we start talking about, joint credit cards, individual, who pays in the situation. I've seen, but it's a responsibility, it's an agreement that you have to make, and it does go on the South Side if somebody wasn't happy or somebody felt like you looked at the guy wrong. I mean, I've heard somebody goes, well, you know what? I saw her flirting with a guy and I got pissed and I just went and bought a gaming thing. I'm like,
Oh.
She goes, you were mad at it? I was looking at it. Like, I literally seen arguments like this.
Wow.
I have seen everything. It's crazy what I've seen. So I you feel that comes up when they don't, they feel like they're putting all this effort in and they don't feel like they have this reward, and this effort and reward becomes a constant battle.
Yeah.
So when I manage budgets and stuff like that, I manage that type of chaos depending on how they feel as couples, and it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's never perfect. I'll put it that way.
Financial compatibility. It's
Oh, yeah.
like, how do you,
Yeah.
like, if you're not financially compatible, how do you make a couple compatible? Say,
It's always a safety and freedom.
safety
The
and
safety
freedom.
is the saver, and
Yeah.
the freedom is the spender.
Mm,
And if you've got, it works, and you've got, what makes you feel safe?
mm,
Well, as long as I know I can pay next month's rent, I feel okay. Well, no financial advisor is going to let you do that.
yeah.
They're going to say, no, 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 we want 6 months of
Yeah.
what I call, oh my God, money.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this happened. Oh my God, that happened. Oh my God, I have to get teeth done. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, money needs to be about 6 times whatever you need. You should have that in savings somewhere where it's liquid, where you can get at it. Doesn't require you, selling crypto or whatever you had to do. You
Yeah.
have to have
Yeah.
6 months of what it takes this family to spend, because if
Okay.
world goes in a handbasket, i.e. COVID, you
Yep.
got at least 6 months before you panic, and you're not selling the farm or going to find somebody or borrowing money from a friend or family. So,
Yeah.
but you'd be surprised how many people think just 1 month is all they need. Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot.
Yeah. 6 months is important. Yeah. That was drilled into me.
Mhm.
And that was
Need
one
6 months
thing that
of, oh my,
just
I
in
like, it's like, I
case.
call it like, oh bleep money, but I call it, oh my God, money.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah.
Yeah. I should rename my account. Oh
Yes.
my
Yeah.
God,
Oh
money.
my God,
Yeah.
money. Yes.
When you're thinking of like long-term planning and
Mhm.
things, when should couples, like, if they're going to start investing together, when is a good time for them to start doing that?
Well, I think because of the way the law looks at everything, unless they actually have an agreement, like they have
Mhm.
like, as you know, Troy and I took his last name, but I'm technically not married. Okay. So I never married him, but I've been with him for so long, but we have
Right.
our last name. So we have a trust agreement between us. So we have something in agreement. But when you get married is when you really have to start looking at that.
Mm.
Before that, you still can kind of disavow. You can do the Mission Impossible. I don't know you, you don't know me, and the tape is going to blow up on you, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so whatever. So once you get married, the government now sees you as an institution together, and your taxes and everything take different, and your debts take differently, and everything else. So long-term money becomes a very interesting thing about savings. And what people don't understand is just if you're making for a while there, a lot of women, in fact, the makeup artist I was working with today,
Yeah.
she's making more. He's going to probably end up making more in his career, but right now she's making more than he is. That's probably going to change right?
Mhm.
So what happens is that as that dynamic change, it's going to change the way that you actually invest your money. And what happens is that when a woman doesn't, let's say she was making 150 and he was making 75, but now he's making 300 and she's making 75 because she's at home. Well, now she's not contributing to the grid, what I call she's not, her Social Security isn't going as much.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, where she was front loading some of her Social Security and her savings is now going to be very thwarted compared to what he's making. Okay. And that makes a really big difference when you get to
Yeah.
retirement. It could be as much as $500,000
Wow.
just in income alone.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about those shifts of how money and income makes, the long-term thing of savings together has to be done on a savings goal, 25, 30
Really.
years from now. What does
Yeah.
that mean? And then I separate it down what would be ideal. And again, if he starts the discrepancy, then we remember the courts are going to see it as if you're still making the total amount.
Mhm.
And so in theory, you're making half and making half, which means we got to make sure she's saving, even though she may not be working. She doesn't have access to a 401k or
Yeah.
anything else. We got to make sure she's saving in some way that's equivalent to what he's doing, equivalent to half of that income. And people forget that. So they put all this money into his 401k and then do no
Nothing
saving for her.
Yeah.
And then the divorce might happen, and all of a sudden he's writing a huge check, but there's no liquidity. Then now he's got to be able to make up the difference it makes
Yeah.
the difference. So
Well,
when we
you
start
don't get
talking
anything.
about that, it becomes a very different balance sheet. And I think the long term, you start saving when you start having you marry,
Getting married.
because they're now a different goal.
So what would be a habit that a couple should start doing to, like, a financial habit that can transform a marriage over a long period of time?
I well, if you have a good financial advisor, they're going to be
Mhm.
knocking on your door probably every quarter. Okay, that's because we become the therapist.
Mm.
I say I'm a doorbell ringer.
Yeah.
If you answer the door, we're going to have a good conversation,
Yeah.
and we're going to put a mirror back in front of you and say, okay, a little Spanky, you didn't do this one right, and this one you did great, right? But I would say I've heard a lot of couples do, like, every 6 months, they take a Saturday off, and I heard
That's a
people
good
do even
idea.
like go to a hotel and
Yeah.
they work out for 3 or 4, and then they go get a couples massage. I've heard they reward themselves. So they go
Oh,
in,
that's
they
a
work
good
out their
idea.
budgets, they see what they're doing. Is there anything that they need to change? And they ask themselves the same questions. I've seen people be very disciplined. And there's some really great books about bad.
Yeah.
But if you have a financial advisor that's going to help you be the doorbell ringer, they'll keep you on track. But if you're doing it, I say just, every 6 months is a good check-in. Where are we? Why aren't we seeing the money? Why does it feel like we're always strapped?
Yeah.
Where is that money? Where is it disappearing?
I had a couple of people write in. I had some questions for you.
Okay.
So one of them says they overspent on their wedding, and what is the smartest way to recover?
Well, I always want to know where it went bad.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes if it goes on a credit card, that makes me mad because that's 25%, and it's very hard to get out from underneath it. I mean,
Yeah.
credit cards are the mafia. I tell you.
Yeah.
I think the mafia offers better rates. But I would say it goes into, we whittle down, like, it's what I call an arbitrage of credit, right? So if something's at 3%, we're going to pay the minimums on something that might be 15%, and we're going to tackle the hell out of the 25%. And so I see where the debt is. And I'll tell you, it means you go without. You do not get to do this. It
don't
means
go
we
to
have,
Starbucks.
you don't go. It stops, because
Yeah.
if you do it this way, it'll be a year of maybe disgruntledness, but a huge gain.
Yeah.
And it's the only way you usually get them out. You really have to put the piles into different piles and say, where do I tackle first? And kind of a step and repeat.
Yeah.
And it eventually it knocks it down. Again, it always depends on how much it is.
Yeah.
Again, it's income.
Yeah.
Income solves everything.
It does.
And that's
It
why I
really
see
does.
people going on Uber. Like, if you just did Uber 2 days a week, I could get this debt down in 6 months. Well, I don't want to do Uber. Well, okay, then that's the sacrifices. It's a push me, pull you all the time.
That's really
So,
good. That's good advice. Yeah. I want to move on to
Okay.
uh,
How this
6:13,
happened. Yeah,
but
this
I
is
will
fun.
do a little quick fire
Yes.
round before we move
Okay.
on.
Yes.
Okay. Number 1, financial red flag in a partner.
Lying.
At the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Hiding the truth.
Splurge on honeymoon or save it.
I love traveling, but again, I don't know. I can't say either one, because the truth is, it just depends on the situation.
both, yeah.
I mean, I love trips, but you can't
Yeah.
afford it. You can't afford it.
Go.
Yeah.
Okay. Big wedding or big house.
I again, it's a memory situation.
Yeah.
But if it's always comes down to what people want. I told you one eloped,
Yeah.
and they got a house, and they have a lot more equity than I would have spent on it. So I
Yeah.
like it. But then,
I say big wedding because
but I love
have a
big
job.
weddings. I'm a big wedding girl.
Yeah.
I spent money. I
Love a
spent
big
money I should
wedding.
have spent. Yes.
Best money advice to newlyweds that you can give in one sentence.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. Embrace the worst part about each other. And if that's finances, I can help you through that, or you can get therapists. But you got to embrace the worst part about each other, because one of my favorite
like
I Love Lucy episodes. Do you remember that, when they all had the ticks, and
Yes.
Rock Hudson was on that episode?
Oh,
And they
that's so
kept doing it, and all they wanted to do was hear that guy whistle one more time, but he kept whistling. It drove him crazy. It drove him apart. It's just one of my favorite episodes. But you got to embrace the
I
things
like
you hate
that.
the most.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. If you love the
love
suck,
it.
then you can usually get through a lot of it.
I think that's amazing. God, you pearls of wisdom in all of that. Thank you for sharing all of that. I hope that people, had some amazing takeaways from that. But okay, this bottle is gorgeous.
Okay.
Tell me the story of 613.
Well, I think I like to switch to, again, walking my talk, and the fact that
Yeah.
I got very sick. I did go to a mammogram. I ended up having ER/PR positive cancer. I went in at a time at COVID. They said, "Oh, you don't have to come in. You can come in." No, I go in every August. I always do.
Yep.
Before everything happens. And I said, "I don't care if I have to stay in line." You guys, I wasn't a really big COVID believer. You probably shouldn't say that out loud, but it wasn't. And then,
Everybody-
but I went in there, and I would, instead of being say, "Okay, we'll see you next year," I got, "You need to come back." And I went, "What?" And then she puts out this thing, and she says, "Okay, that's cancer." And I tell you, it was not the size of the tip of my fingernail. It was crazy. So I went in feeling great, and I came out supposedly fighting for my life, which was just crazy, and didn't really realize it. So that was August 10th, 2020. And everything went crazy. So I had 26 rounds of chemo and 28 rounds of radiation, a couple of operations, lost hair, had a steroidal effect, had gained 70 something pounds.
Oh my gosh.
It took everything. It took everything I thought was me. And I didn't feel it was my time yet, but you do have interesting coming to Jesus talks,
I bet.
okay?
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I changed my name to Schmidt, because I woke up one night fearful that I was going to go to the ground with the he who shall not be named second husband's last name, and I didn't want to go to the pearly gates, hoping it was the pearly gates.
Mm.
I didn't want to go to the pearly gates and say,
Wow.
like, I don't want to be in eternity with this name.
Yeah.
I really wanted to pick a different name.
Wow.
So anyway, that was how I was scared and doing it. And then we finally get through all that treatment, and Troy surprises me. We go to a huge trip. I got to finally do the Orient Express, go from Paris to
amazing.
Venice on the Orient Express. It was amazing. And anyway, we ended up in Athens, and we walked the Acropolis, and we come back down, and we're at the Hotel Britannia, and I'm up at the top. And about 10 years prior to that, we had been at a bar where this gentleman had given us this really great Manhattan, which I loved Manhattans. And I used to love my bar routine. That's the hardest part about getting sick, is you lose
Yeah.
your routine. You lose yourself. You lose the everyday. That is what's so precious about our health every day, is just
Yeah.
you lose
Mm.
what you take so for granted. And I missed going to the bar and just having a drink and talking with people. And I missed that. And I missed all of that. But when 10 years earlier, we had been at a bar with this bartender, and he slipped us something good in there. And it ended up being this kind of fig-infused whiskey. And I loved it. And it always resonated with me. And I kept doing it. So when we were at the bar and at this restaurant, they served me a fig and apple salad. And it was my 60th birthday. It was June 13th. And they served me this delicious fig salad, and not a great Manhattan. They're not really good at mixing drinks there.
Yeah.
And I tasted that, and I went right back to that great drink I had like 10 years ago. And I can't explain it because I'm a financial person. I like my columns. I had somebody split me open and stuffed an idea, and I saw the whole thing. I drew the bottle, I saw the recipe, I
Wow.
saw the entire thing. And I don't know what possessed me, but it became almost an possession, which isn't me, because I'm pretty practical. And again, not what I'm good at, spending money, spending savings,
Yeah.
and started to see if it worked. And it turned out that we had a liquid that had never been done before, and already has won some awards. And so when I did this whole bottle and I did this 613, it became something that said maybe I was here. And maybe all of these crazy things that my dad prepared me for, the design eye that my mother gave me, the discipline of being able to manage my life, to understand romance and what I like to call the mammalian pull, that feeling
Mhm.
before you kiss somebody and it gets really
Mhm.
good. And that's what I wanted my liquid to taste like, is like you just kiss somebody for the same time and it made everything taste really good. And it just became a thing. And I would measure women's perlicues so they would fit the.
That's amazing
Yeah,
that you
I
did that.
literally would
You went
trace
through
people.
so much.
That's my
in depth.
engineering background,
How did you know about those vendors? How did you know where to go, and how did you
I
know?
did. It was almost a way God providence, and I think it was the first time I actually really believed in God. I know that sounds kind of crazy. I've never been a really religious person. I've always had a respect,
Mm.
and I would say I'm definitely more Christian based in my principles, but I never really felt that presence until this idea came in my head.
Yeah.
And it's hard to talk about, because when Troy saw me get the idea, he thought I was going to pass out. So, because I had a lot of pain still back in those
Yeah.
days, and I had a lot of pain. And he thought I was going to go. He thought I was going down, and my blood. And I said, no, I just had an idea. And I spent the next 3 days. We had got on a cruise at Athens and worked our way back to Venice. And I wrote a 186-page business
Oh
plan
my gosh.
on the cruise. I didn't sleep for 3 days. So it was
Drawing
just,
on napkins.
I was.
Yeah.
I was. And he thought, he
Wow.
goes, you're just being Karen. I'm like, no, something tells me I'm supposed to do this. And that's all it was. So here we are. We launch in literally 50 days.
Oh my
June
gosh.
13th.
This is incredible.
Yeah, we launch. It's going to go in. It's been crazy. I'm hoping everybody just loves it. It's a perfect little modifier. I'm so proud of it. And it's a shot. I told it, it's the kids. It's the inheritance.
Yeah.
First time I've been able to actually spend my own money. So I told them, I said,
How
it's
was
not
that
yours
for
anymore.
you?
That was interesting. It's been hard. I actually have to come to terms with my own fears and
Yeah, yeah.
chaos and money.
Yeah.
But I did save for a lot of years. I've been
Mhm.
working this hard since I was 14,
Yep.
13 years old. I have saved things. I have sacrificed. I have said no. I remember one time I hadn't even bought a bra for 10 years because I was so busy doing stuff for the kids. I mean, I literally was like, I think it's time. But it was just one of those things. I
get
always
that.
spent on the kids. I always did everything. I paid for their
Yeah.
education. This is the first time I've ever allowed myself to do it for me. And I really think I couldn't have done it without this kind of weird epiphany.
Yeah.
And so in financial planning, I have all these clients that are they're my best. I thought it was going to be a weird thing to talk to them. They go, oh my God, Karen, you so deserve this. And it's been really fun for me. But I still manage my practice. And this has been my passion. And we'll see if the world thinks it's good. But and June 13th,
is the
it
big
launches.
day.
It's the big day.
I love the shape of the bottle. Like
Yeah.
you shaped it like a
broad man's shoulders,
a little
and then
woman's
bring it to the
waist.
waist and bring in the pull.
And I love the kiss. Like if
Yeah.
you see on that bottle, there's a man and a woman,
Yeah.
and they're just about
getting
to
that
kiss.
that feeling.
So when the liquid goes in, you'll see the liquid through the glass, and
Yeah.
then when it's on the shelf, the
Hopefully you'll see the light come through and feel like almost a heartbeat. That was my goal. There's a saying in the industry, the bottle brings them in and the liquid brings them back. So for me to be a modifier with like a Kahlua or Aperol, all these things
Yeah.
that people put into their drinks to spice them up. Because remember, all liquids are generally clear
Yeah.
and based out of corn or whatever. They
Yeah.
don't really have taste unless you modify it to that brings out the drink. That's what mixology and these bartenders are so great at. And I've been told this is the best modifier that they've had. In, they calling it the bartender's ketchup, which I could be so lucky if that, they pour it in everything.
Oh my
But I'm excited.
gosh.
I have no idea. I just know that I've done something, and maybe my 16-year-old grandson will sneak before he's 21 years old and get a little drunk on it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm excited, but we'll
It's
see.
so exciting. The lid as well.
The lid,
top,
well,
the
actually,
gold.
yeah, we hadn't gotten the actual final
So-
ones yet, but it'll be gold.
Yeah.
But it has the cartouche that I designed. I
Oh,
wanted it to feel like
Beautiful.
a Magna Carta, like something out of it was stamped and it was
Yeah.
King's approval. You found it on the Roman floor, so it just fits in here. It'd be beautiful liquid.
Beautiful.
And I was hoping we'd have liquid in by the time you had asked me to do this, but we don't. We'll be in the
That's
bottle. We'll be
okay.
in the bottle in about 22 days and out for distribution by June 13th. So it's exciting for me.
Very
so a very
exciting.
nice 64th birthday for me
Yes.
to celebrate.
And I think it's
And-
going to be so beautiful for weddings as well, because it's
do.
going to be like specialty drinks.
Oh my God,
huge
bride and
with
groom could
weddings.
totally
Yeah.
come into the feature of,
Yep.
of being able to bring in that thing. I hope it adds the romance that they would like. I would love it if
Yeah.
my event planners thought it was a kind of a cool thing.
We
to take
do.
around.
We think it's really
'Cause
cool.
I know that's a big thing to make a big
It
drink.
is.
I mean, my daughter worked
Specialty
so hard
drinks.
on hers.
Hers, and theirs.
Yeah.
Now there's 3, right?
Yeah, and then there's always
And
one
then
other. I mean, I
For the
think it's-
dog.
Yeah.
The dog has one.
I have seen it
So,
all, and
yeah.
by the way, it's amazing over ice cream, and it tastes.
Yes,
I actually.
read that.
Yeah, I put it in my chocolate ganache on my cheesecake, and I was like doing like kind of I was tapping into my barefoot Contessa part of me. I just love that show. But anyway, if you're hearing that, Ina Garten, by the way, I would love to
We
meet
love you, Ina
I
Garten.
love you. I love you. But anyway, yeah. So it would be loved to put it in my in a
Yeah.
chocolate ganache. But yeah,
It's lovely. I'm
excited.
so excited for you. I'm so excited for
Thank
the
you.
bottle to be a huge success. And we're going to see it at all the weddings.
I hope so.
And I thank you so much for being
You
here
are
today.
special to me, sweetie. I'm so
Well,
happy to be here.
you are very special to me
Congratulations. This is
too.
insanely great.
Thank you.
thank you
We
very
want to
much.
educate and we want to inspire, and you've done both of that today. So thank you
thank you.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Ah. If you've loved this episode, please make sure to follow on all platforms and share it with someone who you know is planning their special day or just got engaged, or maybe they're just in their next chapter of their life. So don't forget to watch out for my Instagram live each week at Charley Bluebell, while I'll be talking about my upcoming guests, so you can send me your questions. So until next time, stay fabulous, stay intentional, and remember that the magic doesn't end at the end of the aisle. This is only just the beginning. I'm Charley King. Thank you.
The Charley King Show. Bluebell Talks. Come on in. Let the whole room talk. The Charley King Show. Bluebell Talks. Oh, we learn your life. Then we sing it back. The Charley King Show. The Charley King Show. Bluebell Talks. Big heart. Big heart. Big dreams. Big dreams. And a